Hello and welcome, Liz. I'm so excited to have you today on this episode. Thank you so much for being here. I know this is just going to be such a cool conversation to have.
Thank you so much for inviting me on. I'm absolutely delighted to be here.
Awesome. So I'll just jump right in it with my intro questions. What is your morning routine look like right now?
Morning routine, wake up, meditate, yin yoga, or maybe some hatha yoga. It really depends on the mood that I'm in. Cold shower and get my day started. So it's not all in that order. Sometimes it really depends. But yeah.
Cool. How long? Okay, so I already have questions about like the cold shower situation. Mm-hmm. I have tried it. I've done it like on and off, but not consistently. Like how did you get into that, and how do you notice like that big of differences when you are using the cold showers?
Yes, I find it amazing. So I started doing it when I wanted to clear my energy. And then when we're sleeping, we can tend to astral plane and move out of our bodies. So I find going in for a shower first thing in the morning, it kind of clears your energy and it resets your nervous system back into regulation, really. And then I started doing it. I started doing the ice cold water baths ages ago, and I've done a couple of them now. I wouldn't do them regularly, but I just found it so amazing. Like I just felt so liberated after doing it. So something that I bring in every day then, and it really kind of starts me into the day, you know?
Yeah, I like that. So maybe I'll consider doing that again. I also do my like body showers for like the energetic cleansing too, but it won't be, I haven't done it consistent enough like in the morning or cold right off the bat. So I wonder how much of a difference that would feel. So I feel like I might have to like try that out this week and see how I feel with it.
With a warm shower and then just turn
it up. Yeah. Okay. As long as I can ease into it, like with the warm shower, then that'll be all right.
Just start yourself with 10 seconds or something like that for the first week, and then crank it up a little bit.
Okay, cool.
You'll be in there for 5 minutes before you know it.
Yeah, right. Oh my God. Just breathing like a champ. Oh, cool. And what would you say is either your biggest or your most recent like expansion moment that you've had?
The most recent expansion moment is when I was in a hurricane solo May last year in Mexico. So definitely a very terrifying situation, but I grew probably the most through that because it was just being really reflected back to me. If I can get through a hurricane solo, I can do anything.
That's insane. That is insane. So how did that even what they evacuated you and where did you go? How did that even, what was going through your brain with that? I can't imagine even doing that. I haven't been through that experience with people, but even solo on your own, would be so overwhelming.
Yeah. Well, I was actually doing a trauma course in Mazunte at the time. Uh-huh. And we had been told that the hurricane was going to hit Puerto Escondido and it wasn't going to hit Mazunte. So we had just kind of battened up ourselves and gotten some supplies. And a lot of people had vacated Puerto Escondido because that's where it was supposed to be hit. But then at the last minute, it done a 90-degree turn and went back onto Mazunte. So we were basically in the eye of the hurricane. It was, terrifying.
Holy shit.
Where I was, the roof had a kind of a thatch, it was stable enough, but a thatch roof, and I was upstairs. So I managed to change the room to a concrete roof just because obviously it would have just been too dangerous. And the couple that were above me, their door ended up coming in and their mattress ended up lifting out and they ended up having to run to the back of their room and stuff. Now, luckily that didn't happen to me because I was holding up the door for I'd say 3 hours or something like that, trying not to let the wind take it off. But
so you just grounded down then. Oh my gosh. Yeah. Wow.
And it's so funny because I thought, I've never obviously been in a hurricane and I didn't know what to expect. And I bought like 20 candles because I knew the electricity was going to run out. My book and got some cacao, and I was like, this is going to be gorgeous, you know, like. Of
course, like setting the scene, like we'll let nature just like flow around us, and like I'll just do my thing over here.
You know what was funny? Like, at the start, I was like reading my book, and then it started to pick up, and then cut to like 5 hours later, I was eating peanut butter out of a jar, and like there was a bucket there next to me because I couldn't go outside to go to the toilet. I was using that to pee in, and I was didn't know when I was going to get my next meal, so I was like shoving peanut butter into my mouth, just so afraid, you know. So,
oh my gosh!
But what a story to tell my niece and nephew when I'm there.
Honestly, just to be like, whoa, like that's just so intense. Like,
yeah,
that's definitely an expansion moment. So how did you like, what happened after that then? Like, how did you like move on from it, or how did that allow things to open up? Or when you were a part of all of that, like, what did that open up for you?
So I suppose afterwards, I started to freak out a bit, you know, because the storm started to die down, but then it was the aftermath. I remember looking on TV and seeing mudslides and things like that on the news, and that was the first thing that came into my head, that there's going to be a mudslide, because we were near to the beach, and I was looking at the water levels of the sea, and, you know, 3/4 of it were mud, you know, it was brown, and then the rest was just the normal sea colour. And I had noticed that I had risen above the mark of a tree, because I was keeping an eye on where the tree was and where the sea level was. I noticed I had risen, so I started to freak out, thinking that there was going to be mudslides. So I grabbed an emergency bag, my laptop, passport, all of that, and just went. And the first thing that came into my head was, the best thing to do is just leave, because you'll be safe. So Puerto Escondido is a 45-minute drive, and I, in my head, thought I was going to walk it. And this was coming into nighttime in Mexico like crazy. Wow. So obviously that was my nervous system going into fight or flight and flee, you know?
Yeah.
So as I was walking out of Mazunte, I was climbing over trees, because a lot of trees had fallen down, and obviously there was no electricity. My phone wasn't working. And I remember like I was just taking photos and hoping it would go to iCloud, so that if I do go missing or something happens, that my family will be able to trace where I am from iCloud, you know?
Yeah, right.
Crazy. And
my gosh.
Then I realized, because obviously there's lots of wild dogs in Mexico, and they're really afraid after the storm, and I could just hear lots of barking and growling, and I was like, I have to turn back, because the dogs over there will bite you, you know?
Yeah.
So I turned back, and then there was these 3 men with a machete and 2 dogs, and I freaked because I was like, what is going on, you know? Like, but what they were doing was chopping down the trees, but because I was in that nervous system state of fight or flight and flee, I was seeing everything as a threat around me. And they were saying to me, what are you doing here? Like, in broken English, because I didn't really have any Spanish, and they didn't have much English, and they were saying, come with us, we're going to try and salvage some of our wreck down at the beach. And I was so cautious. I was like, do I go? Do I not? I, like, freaking out. Yeah. I genuinely thought, trigger warning, that they were, you know, going to do something to me, because men with dogs and a machete, you know, the first thing that comes into your head if you're already scared is something is going to happen. So then I started walking with them, because I didn't want to get bitten by any dogs. And then I came across a guy that was outside of a kind of, it was like a rundown hostel kind of thing, but he had an Irish English accent. So I found this familiar, and I felt a little bit more safety. And he was like, what are you doing out here with them? Are you okay? But at that stage I couldn't speak. So I was trying to speak, and I was like, blah, blah. And I just remember thinking to myself, I'm trying to say something and my words aren't coming out. Like, and he was like, I think you're in shock, love. I think you're in shock. Come in here. And the first thing I could say was, is there women in the house? Because obviously I felt more safe if there was women there as well. And there was. And I ended up spending the night there then with, I think there was 4 or 5 of us, but it was flooded and everything. Wow. So it was just a crazy experience, like absolutely crazy. Yeah.
Yeah.
So after that, then it took me quite a while to, I suppose, come into a state of regulation. It would come in waves, you know. What I believe I was suffering was PTSD. So I would be fine, and then it would come back at me, and I would just feel lots of exhaustion and tiredness, and just a sense of kind of like lack of control, you know. So I spent a lot of time really regulating my nervous system, and luckily enough, as I was saying, we had started doing our trauma release course in Mazunte, so that had to be postponed, and had restarted then in Puerto Escondido after the hurricane. So I was still getting some sessions then, because obviously we had to practice on each other, because it's somatic integrated body work. So with that, we were doing body work on each other to support ourselves, to be able to kind of go through the trauma of the hurricane as well.
What a real life, like applying what you're learning as like you're all releasing what you just went through. Like that's insane.
Mad.
Wow. To be like, yeah, I'll give you some practice here. This is what you need to release.
And what's funny is the next day after, because I stayed the night in Mazunte, but we were much more at a height, and it was kind of away from the beach, so I felt a lot safer. And the next day we went out just to kind of have a look, and the place was destroyed, and we sent it on videos and pictures of what it looked like. And I remember thinking to myself, do I go back and stay, get the rest of my stuff, or do I go to Puerto Escondido, which is a 45-minute drive away? And I seen this hummingbird, right, just come up right in front of me, and just, it was like doing its little wing thing for a while. And I was like, that's a sign to leave, because my cacao had a hummingbird picture on it, and it said fly. So I was like, yeah, I'm supposed to fly out here, you know?
Yeah.
Went to Puerto Escondido. And then as I was still in a state of kind of shock and not really in my body, I ended up going and doing like helping the people in the charity the next day, like not even thinking that I needed to rest myself, because there was kids without food. There was like families without water. Some families that had literally the roofs taken off them. And there was an old woman when we went to do the charity support the next day. I think she was like in her 70s. A tree had fallen onto her garden and stuff like that, so she couldn't actually come out of her house. She'd no water, she'd no food. The family next door, there was 3 kids, 2 dogs, no food. You know, it was just, I don't know why they didn't prepare for it like that, but it was just crazy, you know. That's insane. And it's so funny as well how I was able to apply the learnings from the trauma course to myself. And I had to go through those different nervous system states to be able to empathize with clients and understand.
I was just about to bring that up. Like, what the insane initiation for the work that you chose to go into, for like them to be like, okay, this is how you can relate to people too, because you can feel it so strongly in your body with what you go through. And obviously that's like, you know, the juice of our medicine is the things that like we bring ourselves through or get out of, or, you know, switch the story of, and that's how we can strongly help others, is by our own personal experience. So like for that to come in so strongly with that, that's, you know, it's for, I guess, reasons out of our control and what we can understand. So like in hindsight, we're like, yeah, thank goodness I went through that. But during that, that's a lot to go through. So I can imagine. Yeah. Wow. Thank you so much for sharing.
No problem. It's interesting as well, just the point in that I was reflecting back on my journal entries yesterday from Mexico. And I had a quote written, something that I wrote down was basically, I was going through life like a hurricane, and then finally the hurricane came for me so that I could look at things. Like obviously with my own trauma release, things are coming up, and just running through life very masculinized, you know, very in my masculine energy. And then finally it does a 360 and it comes back to me. So I get a deeper awareness of where I am in my life, and get to really see the hurricane within myself, you know. So
Yeah. Wow. That's so powerful. Wow. Okay. So Well, that leads us into our next question. So what would you say is like the weirdest thing about you? I mean, there's so many things that I think that we can relate to one another if we are able to share those parts where we get nervous. But do you have something that pops up where you're just like, that's kind of weird that is about me?
This is really random. I can shake my eyeballs.
Wait, now you gotta show me.
That is the tip of the eyeball. Hold on now.
Okay.
Can you see it?
I do, yeah.
Yeah, and I don't know how I can do that.
Oh my God, that's insane. Yeah. It's like well, for those of you that don't know, we're both located in Bali right now, but it reminds me of the, what is the dance? One of the traditional dances where like their eyes go back and forth like really quickly. You know that dance? Yeah. Oh, that reminds me of that. Anyways, okay, that's really cool. Wow. So with your path, with your journey, like, did your like awakening to those things, like you mentioned the trauma course that you started in Mexico, was that along your path? Like, what was that first initial like kind of trigger of like something that has to change, or how did you even find out that you wanted to do that trauma course? And then what has been like your path since then?
So I suppose my awakening would have been earlier on in life. When I was a lot younger, I definitely was more open to spirit, but not actually even realizing. I used to go underneath the stairs and like do like meditation. It was actually praying, really, because I grew up in a really strict Catholic school with nuns and over in England, and I used to always go into this space to kind of connect, but not realize that I was doing it at the time. And then as I started to get older, I started to really kind of mask myself and not fit in because I got bullied and stuff like that. Then I moved over to Ireland at the age of 11 with an English accent, and that really impacted me a lot, I suppose, because, you know, if somebody has an English accent in Ireland in the 90s, it's not exactly something that a lot of people would have been welcoming about, you know. So I really put up a lot of masks around that and learned to just really push down my emotions a lot. And then I started really kind of like partying a lot more in my 20s, going out at the weekend. I really started working a lot. So, you know, to fund my lifestyle, because I was going on every single holiday. I was going to, you know, Ibiza, Vegas, all of these amazing places to just kind of get away from everything. Now, I had the best time. I had great crack, but there came a point when it just wasn't fun anymore, you know, and I really started to notice that, you know, the fear and the anxiety had just gotten to a point where it was unmanageable. But even before that, I would go through waves of, you know, feeling okay and then not able to, you know, just really low lows and just completely hiding it from everybody, you know, pretending that everything was fine. I used to work in a corporate job as well. And at the time, I just remember thinking, is this it? You know, like, is this what my life is? You know, there were points in work where, you know, I was looking around at everybody and everybody was just, you know, stuck to their computer. Nobody is talking. And this is just so inhumane, you know, and I felt like just flipping the desk over or, you know.
I resonate so hard to that. Yeah. Cause I was a similar way where like, it almost sneaks up on you. And I think it's because the way it's like society kind of is structured, or like how you have fun or how you're advertised to loosen up from work and stuff. So it was like, immediately when I got into like healthcare, I mean, it was like, yeah, you work long hours and you work hard, but then you party hard. So it was like, I did the same thing where I was like out on the weekends, having a great time, like having great times with friends, like dancing, thinking that was it, like thinking that was like, oh yeah, this is how I loosen up. But then also reaching that point being like, okay, what is this? Or this can't be it. I remember having that same thought of like, I was in New York City, working nights, going out, the nights that probably I probably the majority of nights that I wasn't working, I was going out. So I was like always occupying myself, having no downtime, having no space, having no time to breathe with myself. And then it just like snowballs. Like you're like, this is something, like everything snapped for me within like, you know, the job, my partner, everything was like all at once. So it was the same, like everything's gotta go, flip the table.
Big purge. I'm actually getting shivers there. They're very similar to me. It was the job, the partner, the house I was living in, you know, friendship groups, all of these things started up to be seen. And at the time I was like, whoa, what is this? And deep down I knew that it was all coming up to clear as well at the same time. It was so difficult though, but I would not change it for the world, because honestly, when you move through all those really challenging choices that you have to make, you just get rewarded with so much more expansiveness, and people come into your life who are meant to come into your life and vibe at the same level of you and understand you on a different level. And yeah, life just rewards you for choosing yourself, I think, you know.
And making the difficult decisions, you know. It's like I just remember you'll have to let me know if you had this moment when you did want to flip the table. Like I remember I was in a studio apartment in New York City, and I remember coming back from a trip with my then partner, and it was supposed to be this beautiful trip, like up north, like in the middle of the woods, and just to reconnect and, you know, and both really enjoy ourselves. And every single thing that was happening, I was just being triggered up the wall, you know, thinking that it was all about him, like, oh, he's wrong. And in reality, and now when I look back at it, it was like, oh, it was just me, just like, it was just my alarm system being like, this is not it. Like, and I remember coming back from the trip, being in my apartment studio, like sitting on the floor, having no idea like what I was feeling, what to do, or what I even needed to change, like feeling so lost. And I was like, I don't even know what am I doing? Like, what is this like? What is the life? Like, why am I doing all these things? And it was like, I think those moments are so crucial too, of like what we choose in those directions, because it was difficult for me to make all those decisions that I had to change in my life. And a lot of people didn't understand. Some people did. And they're like, yeah, dude, like you need to switch some stuff up. But a lot of people didn't. It was just like on paper, everything looked great. I had a great job. He was a great partner. It was a beautiful apartment with a balcony, you know, studio or patio, which is not as hard to have in New York. So it was like on paper, it looked great, but I was like dissolving inside, you know? Yeah. But yeah.
I feel as well when you're in those moments, if you don't really know what's going on and you don't have an awareness around it, you can try to resist the change and hang on to what you know that's safe.
Yeah.
And this is where a lot of people get stuck, because imminently it's going to fall away, because, you know, life wants what's best for you. So it's just going to keep pushing these situations on you until you make a choice to actually move out of the vibration that you're in. And a lot of the time when people don't understand the energetics of it or what you're trying to call in, if you're calling in happiness or, you know, unconditional love for yourself or whatever it is, that these situations need to move out of your field to allow the others to come in that you're calling in. But people can kind of resist the change and hold on for dear life and then delay what is rightfully meant for you to come in, you know?
Right.
And I did do that quite a bit at points. And then later on in my journey, because I've gone through a lot of different purges, then I've started to realize, oh yeah, I know what's going on here now. Just let go. Let go and allow the energy to flow. And that's it.
Yeah.
Create these blocks.
Right. So when you realize that, like when you wanted to flip the table, like what happened after that? Like you're in your corporate job, like what happened from there to what steps did you take in between? Because I feel like that's where those steps are so important. And that's where like people can really start to like, okay, maybe resonate with that period of spot where you're at now. But then like, how did you get yourself to like where you are like now, like with what you're doing? Yeah.
So around that time as well, when I went to flip the desk and jump on the photocopier, this is crazy. I was seeing someone at the time and it didn't end very well. Well, it ended exactly the way it should have ended, but at the time I found it really difficult to process. Mm-hmm. So I decided to go to Reiki, and I went to this lady, had a good few sessions from her, and I was like, I need to explore this world of Reiki. And at the mm-hmm. time, my mom was actually doing her level 1 as well. Around that time, I think it was. And basically, I remember lying on the bed in my mom's room, and she was practicing on me, and she hadn't even touched my head. I think it was like here. And I genuinely felt like she had put a key into my head and turned something. It was crazy. And I was like, what are you doing? And she was like, I haven't even touched you yet. I'm just practicing, and I was like, I felt like something had been unlocked, So my mom never continued with her Reiki 2 or Reiki 3 or Masters. This is obviously all that she was supposed to do, maybe, So from that point, then I started getting regular treatments just to help myself process the heartbreak. And also I knew it just felt so right within that I just had to follow it. So then I seen a Reiki level 1 attunement. This is around 4 or 5 years ago, and I was like, right, I have to do it, no questions asked. I don't even know much about it, but I'm just going to do it. And then I went through my process of being attuned into Reiki 1, 2, 3 and master teacher, and I haven't looked back. Then I just started taking Reiki clients in the evening in a hair salon, as well as working in the 9 to 5. And then I had, okay, this is the path I want to go down, so I need to control. I did at the time. I need to do more courses for the line of work that I want to be in, right? So I was doing a massage therapy course. I was doing, Hopi ear candling, what's the other one? Indian head massage, all these different things, because I thought, I'm going to open up a business in Ireland. I'm going to leave the corporate job and I'm going to do this. But obviously I had nervous system burnout then, because, if you're in a job that isn't feeding your soul, you're leaking energy. And then I'm doing energy work in the evenings. That's a lot of energy as well.
Just zapping yourself.
Again, a huge method to release control. Stop trying to control and have patience. So these have been big underlying themes in my life where I've wanted to control the situation and not allow the universe to come in and, give the guidance and support that it's so readily able to give us when we release control.
Yeah. Oh, isn't that like the biggest lesson of all of ours all the time? And it's like, you learn it and you get it and you're like, oh yeah, I did that. Great. And then I feel like it happens again and again and again. Like it literally just happened to me just last night or this weekend, where I'm like, I gotta figure out where I'm going to travel next and how I'm going to do it and all this stuff. I'm stressing myself out. And I was like calling my family and I'm like, what am I doing? This is like not how I normally act, but like you can so quickly kind of get in that like lopsided, like off, and you just have to be like, okay, wait a minute, let me just take a breath. Like, let's ground, let's do some nervous system work. And it's so funny even today, where it's like, I went to bed being like, it's going to be taken care of. I'll know what to do when I wake up tomorrow. And I get like a message from one of the people that I was trying to contact about like what's going to happen next. And it was like, boom, 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 right before we were like, listen, I have a podcast interview. I have to figure this out before 10 or after 10 or, and later in the afternoon. And she was like, yeah, we'll be 10 by 10. And it was like 9:40. And she was like, all right, cool. So you're all set. And I was like, holy shit, that really worked out. I was like, I didn't have to stress about any of that. Like,
this is it. I think when we stress about that's amazing. Stress about something, it just creates an energy around it and it puts the block up, and then the universe can't help us. But if we actually show, okay, I trust, show me how this is going to work for me. I keep saying this, show me how, and then it just unfolds. And it did for you. So that's amazing.
Yeah. How would you direct somebody to? Because it's such a fine line for us to be able to like release and surrender and be open to the information and messages, the way things are supposed to work out, but then also actively like co-create and kind of lead the direction of the energy. What are ways that you do that in your life? Like, how do you find that balance?
I would drop it into awareness. So an awareness of how you are going about your day or your life or the situation. And then when you notice an emotional attachment to an energy of, say, like panic or fear or control, try and zoom out of that. So I'd like to bring in like the eagle view, so or the helicopter view. So like embody the eagle so that you can actually zoom out of your situation and see where your energy is flowing, so that you can release that energy and then allow the universe to step in. Because when we have an emotional charge to something, it kind of locks us in that, especially if it's it locks us in the past, or it locks us stuck in a situation, and then we can't really flow. And we are water. We're like, what are we, 70-80% water?
Yeah.
You know, so if we are stuck to an emotional attachment, or it could be a person, a job, or whatever it is, we're not allowing ourselves to flow like the universe. And the universe is all flow and magnetism, but like past experiences and things like that and traumas can keep us stuck in an emotional attachment and keep us looping in that and keep us in this particular field locked, you know.
Yeah.
So I find journaling gives us a really good perspective on being able to zoom out. So like, even I read my journal that I kept last year from Mexico, and I was looking at it and I was like, holy shit, like my mindset was so different January last year compared to now. And even that's a bird's eye view, and having it on paper, you're able to see how much you've changed and how much you've grown as well. So like journaling is a really good way to get all that energy out of your head, out of your body onto paper. And then like changing the mindset as well, like cold showers, breath work, I find allows us to kind of come out of the emotional attachment as well. Because when we arrive onto the earth, the breath is the first thing we take, and then when we pass, our breath is the last thing we take as well. So it's a portal, it's a gateway to the other realm, which allows us to see a different perspective.
That like in between the breath and the exhale, like, oh, that's beautiful. I love the way that you described it as like that bird's eye view, being able to like, I think that's so powerful, just like wherever you're at, because there's so many things like when you're in that space and that kind of emotional, like, whether it's like a decision making or like you're going through some sort of huge thing, and it's super easy to like not feel like you can do any of the practices. Like you can't do any of the practices, like the breath work, like things sometimes don't feel like it's doable, you know, like in that moment in time. And so I feel like that bird's eye view is so simple and so quick to, you know, you could put a reminder, I guess, even just like a picture of a bird or something, like if you're going through something, to be like, okay, remember, zoom out. And so I think that's super powerful to be able to use that. I really like that tool, just like zoom out as the bird's eye view. I think that was so helpful.
Another thing, seeing as you brought it up there around when you are in it and you're not able to, if you have a daily practice where you're meditating and you're journaling, doing all these things, sometimes doing is not required, and we're just supposed to be and allow ourselves to feel. And if we have kind of pushed down the feelings and the emotions for a long period of time, eventually that's going to come up to be seen, and allow yourself to be seen without judgment. So like no judgment, but have compassion for yourself. So even if you can't do the bird's eye view and you're so emotionally stuck in it, allow yourself to feel the emotions that are coming up, but with compassion. And I always find this is a really good, like a nervous system kind of somatic chill, like placing your hands like that and just breathing through it, and just even repeating to yourself, I'm right here with you. We're walking through this together. You're safe with me. And basically you're speaking to your inner child, but your nervous system as well. And with that, you know, you don't feel as alone, and you're reparenting yourself through this situation in a sense. Yeah,
definitely. That comes up so much too, of like, even if we've had really great childhoods, whether we did or didn't, it's like you always have to go through that kind of reparenting of like, okay, no, like you get to control how your system reacts. Like you get to control how, maybe not all the circumstances around you, but how you respond to those. And we can immediately go towards like, oh, I'm this way because of X, Y, and Z, or all that kind of victim mentality. And when that mindset shifts of like, okay, no, I do have the power within me to kind of shift this and look at it differently, or look at it as an opportunity, or, things like that. So yeah, the reparenting is up there on, I think, the things that, like, as you work through these things, become easier the more that you do it. And then, just being with yourself and that. But okay, so how did you go from doing Reiki at night to also the 9 to 5, realizing like that wasn't it, and frying yourself? Like, what bridged from the next move that you made?
I had nervous system burnout at that point. I had to take some time off work. So I took like 5 weeks off work and thought I would be fine to go back in. And I just wasn't fine, because obviously your nervous system takes a long time to be able to kind of come back into a state of harmony and balance. And then I had to take more time off, and then I knew things had to change. Actually, COVID happened as well. And then let me think, what did I do then?
Were you in Ireland? England?
Yeah, I was staying in Ireland then at the time. And then I manifested an opportunity to leave my job and go traveling, because they were letting some people go. Basically, they were resizing the company. And I had been really into manifesting and, affirmations, and kind of working on myself for maybe 3 years previous to that. So I drew out a check with a number on it, and I manifested this number and the opportunity to leave the job, basically. And then I went traveling, and I went to Mexico.
Wow.
and decided to just really focus on myself. And that's where the trauma course came in. I done a vinyasa course as well, vinyasa teacher training, but with very little yoga experience. Like, I had only really done yoga during COVID, and then I decided to kind of throw myself into vinyasa. It's hardcore.
I'd say, my goodness, I did a Kundalini yoga teacher training a few months ago in India, and it was like, the Kundalini, you're not doing very much yoga, but we had yoga classes. That's so funny. I go for the certification, but it was like for my own practice. Like, I also I did yoga maybe occasionally here and there, like classes here and there, but wasn't really into it. And then here I'm doing like this teacher training, and it gives such a different, foundation of like doing the practice. But it felt, it was like, okay, I've done yoga maybe like a handful of times, and here I am, in this space. Yeah.
Yeah, it's so good though, because I think you can get habits with your breath and stuff like that if you've been doing it by yourself for a while, or you're overextending. And when you go in without knowing much, you're completely like a clean slate to the teachers to be able to guide you into, the practice that they feel is good to share. But also, I remember sharing my journey, and there was so many people messaging me, and they were like, oh, like, have you been doing yoga for long? And I was like, no, not really. Like, I've been doing bits. And they were like, oh, I didn't realize, like, I thought you had to be a full yogi to be able to do a teacher training. And I was like, no, some courses allow you to go in. And then I have messages from people saying they had signed up, and it was one of the best things that they do. And honestly, it was an amazing way to get back into the body and learn more about my body, because the body holds all the wisdom, and I was so tight from sitting at an office desk for so long that I really wanted to create flexibility in my life, and that was Mexico. And then obviously I felt like my body needed to mirror the same, so that's why I wanted to do the course as well, to create more kind of flexibility all over. So and then it led down different experiences then, obviously the hurricane being one of them.
And okay, so then after Mexico you went back to Ireland, and then, or did you continue to? Okay. Cool.
Yeah. So I was in Mexico for 11 months, and then it came to a point where, I had overstayed my welcome. So lots of things started to go wrong, to really go right, because it was a misdirection. So my laptop broke, my bank card got eaten by the machine, never came out. My other bank card, my Revolut, stopped working, and I had to wire money over. And I just felt like, what's going on? There was just different challenges. And then I was like, I need to leave Mexico. I'm just getting this feeling. So I really wanted to come to Bali, and I just, obviously it's a really long flight from Mexico to Bali. And then I was like, sure, I'll go home and get some love from the family. You know, it's been 11 months. I've been through quite a crazy 11 months. And I got to meet my little nephew who was born while I was away, and like see my nieces and the rest of the family. So I stayed in Ireland for 10 days, and then I came to Bali.
Wow. And then here you are. Whoa. Yeah. Okay, cool. So like other things that you had mentioned that I know is on your path of like, you've done different like ceremonies and things that have opened up for you. Like how can you talk about a little bit of those things that you have tried that also have been kind of powerful for like, you know, like letting you on for this journey, and how like it's kind of, helped you work through different things? Or what would you do again? What would you recommend other people to do or not do? Like you had so many that you have tried. So I'm so interested to see like what really, have worked for you.
So initially with plant medicines anyway, I was really drawn to ceremonial grade cacao. Sorry. And cacao is amazing. I found it so amazing on my journey to really drop into the heart. At the time, I was in a relationship that I suppose wasn't really aligned with where I wanted to go. And when I started to see cacao everywhere, I started to obviously get that intuitive feeling that I need to work with this medicine, because I remember checking with some friends and saying, have you seen this cocoa everywhere? What is this? It's not normal cocoa, it's different cocoa. And they were like, what are you talking about? So I knew, I was like, right, I had to follow this because I'm seeing it everywhere. So I went to my first ceremony, and it really opened me up to a different way of connecting to myself. I felt so much bliss, so much, almost like a remembrance, like an activation of the heart, that the power of the heart that is within us, and the frequency that the heart can give off when we connect to it. And this medicine allowed me to do that. And then I started to have a regular practice with the medicine by myself, and I kept asking for clarity, and I wasn't sure. I just had this fog, And then I realized that, some changes needed to be made around the relationship and stuff, and lots of different things started to flip and shift then from that. And then I done my cacao ceremony course. The facilitator course. So the cacao ceremony facilitator course, and that was an intense journey of, shadow work and dropping into the heart and really dissolving all of the layers that I had put up around my heart over the years. Then from there, I was invited to a ceremony. It was a mushroom and so a psilocybin mushroom and cacao ceremony, and it was and breath powerful as well. So that was absolutely mind blowing. Like honestly, words will never be able to describe some of the experiences that you have with mushrooms. I don't think, because it is a complete experience, and the energetics of it, there just aren't words to describe it. But I remember at one point in the ceremony, I remember kind of taking the eye mask off and looking at my hands and just tapping my hands and going, that's not me, this body isn't me. And I remember looking around at everybody, and there was like this little spark in everyone, and it's almost like our bodies were in layers. So like obviously we have different energetic layers. We have our physical, mental, spiritual, and it was like you could see the dimensions of the body, but all that I could really focus on was the light, and the message that I was getting was that we are light, that is us, and that this is like a construct of, the matrix or whatever you want to call it. And from that moment I was like, wow, I just kept getting these messages to be the light and show up as the light and express yourself the way you're supposed to express yourself, and that you are joy, you are love, all of this. So the insights that I got from that medicine was unbelievable. And then, I suppose I'm very much higher chakra activated anyway. So sometimes when you're doing these kind of plant medicines, and I'm very sensitive, so I would be very sensitive to whatever I put into my body. So this really showed how sensitive I was when I done a Wachuma journey in, I think it was June 2021. Yeah, 2021. So this probably took me the longest time to integrate, because integration is so important after a plant medicine journey. And in this one, a lot came up with regards to like the suppression of women in Ireland, and a lot of shame and separation and trauma that is stored in the land of Ireland. And really, I was shown so many different experiences that like our ancestors would have went through in our lineage in Ireland, and how it was stored in our bodies, and how, you know, as a collective in the room, in the ceremony, we were basically tapping into this energy of, you know, deep grief and separation and angst. And yeah, it was very intense. It took me quite a while to integrate all of the messages, and I'm still integrating it, to be honest, like even two years later nearly. And at the time I wasn't sure why I was seeing all these things, but what I realized, I suppose, over the years doing this work, is that you're given like pieces of puzzles, right? And things start dropping in, and you're not given all of the information straight at once handed on a plate, because we literally would not be able to process that. It's too much for our mental capacity to be able to process all this information. So we're given breadcrumbs, and we're allowed to digest that, and then we're given the next breadcrumb, and then things start to add up and you start to make sense of your experience or whatever you've been shown in your journey. So it was an amazing journey, but definitely something that I would, now I'm not saying everyone is going to have the same journey as that when they go into a medicine experience like that, but it has definitely made me think twice about doing ayahuasca, because, you know, I want to be in a state where if I do need integration afterwards, that I'm completely able to do this, you know. And yeah, because obviously I was in Ireland when I was integrating that, and yeah, then so much changed. I was in Mexico afterwards, and I feel like the time spent in Mexico was allowing me to really ground in and embody that experience that I witnessed. Because yeah, in that experience, a lot came up around the Chum babies and the unmarked graves of the baby, and different burial sites that are in Ireland, and how there's a lot of shame and oppression in Ireland because of this. And yeah, it's just a lot. It was a lot to experience, but it's exactly what was supposed to have happened, I suppose, because maybe a month afterwards, I actually had no awareness about the Chum babies in Galway, and a month afterwards it kept coming up in my awareness everywhere, and I was like, why is this coming to me? And then I realized that in ceremony, when I had seen all these babies and, you know, the grief attached to it, that this was what I was seeing, and I was being shown that this is stored in the land, and this is a frequency that's in the land, and if we are electric beings, we absorb that frequency through the land. And this is why there is so much grief in Ireland, and so much, I suppose, disconnect in a sense, because obviously that wasn't acknowledged in the past. And if something doesn't go acknowledged and brushed under the carpet, it doesn't mean it doesn't go away. On an energetic space, it still stays there, and like we can still embody it unknowingly.
That's so true. What are the two babies? I don't have that much knowledge from that.
So basically it's around the mother and baby homes, and they are unmarked graves where the babies were basically thrown into the graves, and they weren't acknowledged, basically. So there's these unmarked graves, and they're burial sites that the Catholic Church would have.
A lot of history then. Yeah, I think especially, and that's how sometimes we sometimes don't even know how to articulate it. I think now as time goes on, we are getting, as the whole collective consciousness is improving or evolving, we have this now more of a vocabulary for it, to be like, okay, to notice, certain places feel better than others, or you're called to go somewhere, but you don't know why. And it's like what you just had spoke about of those frequencies within the land and how they affect us. And then how we can also affect the frequency of the land, back and forth. So that's wow. Okay. So keep going on that.
Yeah. So I started to just receive information through people and seeing it like maybe in an article in a paper or something like that. And it would just stand out to me, it was like I was drawn to it like a magnetic pull. And then I started to realize that what I had seen and witnessed in the ceremony was basically the experience of what our ancestors would have experienced through, I suppose, the Catholic rule of the suppression of women, where they would have taken the babies off the women and put them into, orphanages, and maybe the baby wouldn't have received the treatment that they wanted, and they were put into an unmarked grave. Approximately 700 and something babies were, I think it's around 790 babies were unnamed or unaccounted for, something like that. To be honest, I found it so difficult to kind of process at the time that I didn't do a lot of research on it, and I still haven't, because I'm really still integrating it in a sense of like, what does this mean for me? Why did I have to, not why did I have to, but why did this experience come through? Yeah. Because other people in the plant medicine ceremony didn't experience that. And I thought at the time, because it was my first time working with Huachume, which is San Pedro, that everybody experienced the same thing. So when I mentioned the babies, nobody knew what I was talking about. So I wasn't sure why that was coming through. And I'm sure that will unfold for me at the right time, but I also do feel that because in a human design, I have an open head center, and lots of different open areas that I can tend to absorb energy a lot more than the other people, or receive energy. And I feel like, obviously, when you're working with a plant medicine as strong as this, it's allowing an energy to come in to, I suppose, work through your nervous system, because our nervous system is where we receive the information, and be able to give messages like this. But I do feel that, obviously, it was supposed to happen. It was an experience that I was supposed to experience and share, and draw some awareness around it. Because if I had no awareness previous to doing the medicine journey, and then it only started to unfold, how many other people are like that, and how many other people feel grief in Ireland and not know why they feel grief, Yeah. So after that, then I did start to work with it was like a hawthorn is the name of it. So it's like a berry. And this is like an ancient heart opening medicine that is basically native to Ireland. So when I was working with cacao, I knew that was like Peruvian or from Guatemala. And I was like, that's native to Guatemala, Peru, but like, what's native to Ireland? What did our ancestors used to work with to drop into the heart? And I found this hawthorn plant basically, and I knew then that there was circles and people working with this medicine that was allowing us to drop into that. And when I went there was a women's circle down the country. I think it might have been Galway, I'm not sure. And we basically had this women's circle where we done, one of those really hot fires, or what you call them. They have them in Mexico. Temazcal.
Oh, okay. And that's not where I was going. Okay, good. All right.
Done one of these temazcals, and it was about sweating the energy out of our bones, and like it's a spiritual experience as well. And we worked with Hawthorne during that as well to open us up into the heart, and mugwort, which is like working with the dream state and working with our ancestors to release energy and stuff. So it's been quite a journey, and I haven't felt the desire to work with any more plant medicines since then. Not saying that I will never, but I suppose I'm just a little bit more cautious.
I think that's so important to note, though, is that I think when you're supposed to work with a certain medicine, it kind of pops into your awareness and you hear about it and you're curious about it, and it kind of just like goes into a ceremony that you would do. And if you don't force it. And you know, if you're meant to work with it, you are. If not, then that's okay too. Like there's so many different avenues to get to, you know, where we want to go. And that's why we do have so many modalities, is for those, you know, all of the different things that we all go through. But it's like trusting, like, okay, that doesn't mean I have to continue, or like the revelations or the big expansion moments are going to only be through these ceremonies, because that's not true either. It's like you had said, the integration is so powerful, even when we go through just an experience in itself. So, and then you had mentioned too that you're doing mediumship, trance mediumship training, or what's that look like for you? Because you said your upper chakras have been kind of already opened, or did these ceremonies kind of help you get on that path, or how did that all blend into what you do now and what you offer and things like that?
So I've always had a really strong intuition, and as I mentioned before, when I was younger, I used to kind of go into meditate and not realize that I was meditating. I was very sensitive, and I would say like a highly sensitive person, you know, especially as a child. So I would have been feeling a lot of emotions and not realize that there are people around me, and I would have internalized a lot of it, thinking that there's something wrong with me, you know, when really I was tapping into other people's energy fields. And then as I started to do Reiki and be attuned into that level and peel back different kind of experiences that were stopping me from seeing the truth, then I suppose more understanding of the level of energy that I was tapping into. So when I was working with somebody, I would maybe feel a pain in my hip if they had a pain in their hip. And I would just think at the start, oh, it's the way I'm standing. And then I'd realize that I'm feeling their energy in their body through my body. And then may have a thought, and something may drop into my head when I'm doing a Reiki session, and I realize, okay, this is a message for them, you know, maybe it's a name of somebody, and I would get the feeling that somebody has come into this space to support with the healing. So this started to progress. It's definitely been a journey. It hasn't just unfolded like that, and it's something that I definitely need to continue to work with and work on. Last year, I did do some practice readings of mediumship, and they were quite successful. And then when the hurricane happened, then, I just didn't feel the need and the want to even tap into that energy. I tried, and my nervous system was just not stable enough to be able to connect. So I felt like I needed to just take a break from it. And then just over the last 2 months, I've decided to tap back into it, and I've done some practice readings. And what I've realized is what's coming through is not just mediumship, it's trance healing. So this is basically where the loved one comes into the space, because I create basically a sacred space where only myself and the sitter who is receiving the healing or the reading, that we're in this vortex basically where only love can come in and only love can go out. So only the highest frequency of love is basically coming into this space, and that could be their loved ones or friend or whoever it is that wants to step forward, maybe a guide or a galactic presence. And basically what I noticed was I was being told to just pause and sit in silence. So I would tell the sitter to basically breathe, and then they would describe that they're feeling like a sensation on their arm. Like one particular client felt like her best friend who had passed had basically guided her by the arm up into this energy, and I actually felt like we were being pulled up as well. And it was like this gold frequency energy that we were both receiving, and it was from the other side. So what I'm noticing now more than ever is that the people that have passed, and anyone that is suffering with grief, that from the other side, they are able and willing to send us healing, because they don't want to see us suffer. They don't want to see us in a low vibration. There is so much grief and trauma in the planet at the moment that they are able to send this healing, but we need to be open to it. And if we think that, you know, this isn't going to work for me, or, you know, we have any sort of misdirected intention around it, then it, you know, it's difficult for them to step in. But if we open up our hearts and allow them to work their magic, basically, from the other side, then, you know, we're just open to living in a different vibration where we don't have to be bogged down by like these really low vibration energies all the time. So it's honestly, I was bawling, crying after a few sessions because I was just with gratitude. It's actually amazing to experience something like that. But also there's an element of caution with it as well, because, or not even caution, but a little bit of fear, and like, oh, I hope this doesn't go away, or, you know, I'm nearly getting attached to it. So I'm just trying to keep myself squared and, you know, like grounded in it, that it will, if a client is meant to receive that, they will. Some clients maybe don't need healing and they just need a little bit of support and advice on their journey. And I suppose I can't control spirit, so I'm just
you're like, whatever comes through is exactly. Oh wow, that sounds so beautiful too. And it's like, it is, it's so much of like opening up to like the love that is here. And it's like, I think that's huge for so many of us to feel so like what you said, bogged down, weighted down, like, and just have all of those really thick heart layers of things that we go through, and trauma and experiences and hurt and heartbreak and all these things. And it's like, as we start to like melt those away and be open to even just sitting in meditation within ourselves. And this has even been so healing within myself. It's just sitting with myself being like, okay, I'm opening my heart and allowing myself to feel whatever's there. And it's like those emotions and that connection is just, that's just, you can't really describe it. It's just, it's so loving once you bring it in and allow that. And it's, the healing comes through. We don't even know what it's, you know, here to do and how powerful it actually is until we actually keep trusting it and going into it. It's really beautiful. Yeah,
exactly.
And so for your, what kind of like sessions do you do? Coaching? Could you talk a little bit about what you offer? Just so that people, if they resonate with your story or just curious about, you know, how they can get in contact with you, what would that look like?
Yeah. So actually today, which is just divine time, and that I'm on this podcast as well, I am releasing my new course called Inner Intimacy.
Amazing. Okay, cool.
It's a 7-week course, and basically there is going to be lots involved in that. It's a community healing group because we heal faster and there is more support in healing. Obviously I'll be leading the group, but the topics that will be covered will be around the inner child, boundary work, self-love, releasing shame, and heaps lot more. So I have a newsletter. If you subscribe to the newsletter on my link tree through Instagram, which is levelup_Liz, you can basically get €150 discount off the price of the course for subscribers only for the first week. So that will run until next week. But I'm not sure when this podcast is going to be released. So we'll see.
Probably pretty soon, I think. I'll get it out like today or tomorrow. So it'll be right on time for you. Yeah. So everybody will in real time. Yeah. That'll be perfect.
I love it. That's my new course. And then what I have been doing over the last month, maybe 6 weeks, is doing weekly energy healing circles. And I've kept this at a really low price because I know with the cost of living at the moment, a lot of people are struggling, and, you know, they're either in and out of the doctor or their immune systems are really low because they've been under a lot of stress over the last 2 years. Because globally, obviously, we're in the pandemic. So our nervous systems are really starting to feel the effects of that. And not everybody has €60 to go to the doctor twice a month because the first set of antibiotics haven't worked, or whatever it is.
Right.
So I've decided to do weekly healings for €15 a week. And kids go free in that, because obviously kids are sponges and they really feel any sort of energy that's in the household, because if we're not regulated as adults, children can pick up on that. So
100%.
This is the space where, mothers and their children can come in and lie in the bed with them, and at 9 p.m. Irish time, they can receive an hour of healing and some meditation. I also share some like nervous system regulation tools, or some sort of like Chinese medicine tools to allow them to kind of integrate any emotion that might come up after the session. So that's what I've been doing. And then I do one-on-one sessions for Reiki. I also do one-on-one sessions for Seichem, which is a different type of energy healing. It's basically an ancient Egyptian style of energy healing, and it uses Reiki, so earth, fire, water, air elements. And it's a lot of fifth dimensional energies come in here, and basically allows people to have a more cellular level, deep kind of release of trauma through energy healing. Then I also do alchemy sessions, which are a mixture of all of the courses that I've done. So it would be nervous system regulation, or, EFT tapping. And it's a coaching session in there as well. So whatever is going on in their life at the moment, we would kind of work through that, what they want to change. And then I would intuitively feel into what kind of a session would be best suited for them to maximize their session and, maximize their healing journey, really.
How powerful.
Yin yoga as well.
Oh my gosh.
I'm a manifesting generator. I love to courses.
Oh, I love it so much. I know. I would say sometimes like I'm the same way. Well, I'm a generator, but like my business is a manifesting generator. So it just makes sense where I'm just like, I'll do a little bit of that, a little bit of that, like this, and, and sometimes I have to be like, all right, girl, like just narrow it down for people. But yeah, I think the different offers like that though, that come through you is just, that's beautiful space, and that you offer so many different aspects, because not everybody needs everything the same, which is so
a big message for me as well. What I've noticed is follow what lights me up at this moment. So there has been times where I'm like, oh, I've done too much stuff, like what am I supposed to offer? And then I'm like, actually, what do I want in this moment? Because if whatever is lighting me up is going to attract more people that need it, whereas I'm doing something that I don't have the energy for, maybe, EFT tapping, maybe that doesn't light me up as much as yin yoga in this time right now that I'm in. Maybe people won't need it as much because I'm not calling, people aren't tapping to the light. So it's
right. Just kind of let like what comes through, like almost like a revolving door, almost like you have all these different bags, and like, oh, okay, this one's popping up. Okay, this is what people need. Yeah. Oh, that's wonderful. Yeah. Oh, anything else you'd like to share or expand on? Before we end?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Awesome. I thought there was one other thing. I was like, usually don't ask that, but
this dropped in last week after a healing session. I hope I can remember exactly what they said. So it was basically, life is always trying to remind us of our power. And if we are giving our power away, life will show this to us as the theater of life. So the theater of life is basically when life is projecting back to us an experience where we have either given away our power or we are working with our power. And our experiences will reflect that back to us. And this is how life is always trying to initiate us into our power. So have a look at your life experiences if you feel powerless in your job or your relationship or friendships. And where are you giving your power away? Because if we step outside of victim mentality, as in, why is this happening to me? And look at it as in, oh, life is trying to initiate me into my power, then we can claim our power back, and then we can move into a more expansive way of being. And we become a lot more powerful and limitless.
Yes. And that's what we all want, right? Like that's the whole goal. Yeah. Oh, that's huge, because even the little things that like, little things in little ways we could be giving our power away to other people, or like even towards like looking for guidance. Sometimes it's like, no, like you can check back into yourself, into your heart, drop into yourself, into your body, and your guidance is all there. The power is all there to make the decisions. Like you have everything that you need, that you could possibly need for the situation that you're going through right now. I think that's, Oh, so wonderful. Thank you so much for coming on and being on this podcast. This was so lovely. And and everybody check out, I will put all of the links that you had mentioned in the notes, so people can click on those easily and check out the new course, because that'll be in real time. You'll be able to get that discount, which is like also super generous, super helpful. I hope you have an amazing rest of your day. And
thank you. Too.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for having me on, and thank you everyone for listening as well.